I had 8 degrees. I had 8 degrees today.
This weekend.
8 degrees this morning.
18 this morning.
Hello, everybody.
Everybody, welcome to the Reboot. Look at these guys. These are the experts on the show, right? You know, I'm just this guy that sits there and kind of talks and asks questions, right, guys? No,
I agree. You're not an expert.
No, not at all. Not today, actually. Not today. You know what? I know a lot about today's topic, but I'm going to let you guys actually fill in all of the important blanks in the questions. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
So, well, once again, I am Jim Gass, and this is the Reboot. And I'd like you guys to take a moment to go around the world and introduce yourselves, starting with this gentleman right here.
Oh, there he goes. Me?
There he goes.
What gentleman?
I see what you did there.
I
like that.
Starting with that guy right there.
Brian Bracciabino.
Oh, that's not true. I was next.
New York.
Sorry. Say that again, Brian. Who are you?
Brian Bracciabino, PC, Long Island, New York.
And Brandon Bowers, EA Managed Technology Services out of South Florida.
And David Luft with LDD Consulting out of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
And I am Groot with WinStar Technologies in Culpeper, Virginia.
It is not fair that he gets to do that for the rest of his life, for his whole life. You know, it's just not fair. I mean,
believe
I wish
me,
like that.
The ridicule I put up with as a child, having the last name Groot, it's payback. It's called karma.
Now you just get ridiculed for something else, right?
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate you joining. Listen, today's show is about.
And who are you? Who are you, by the way?
Me? I said it. I'm Jim Gass with Splicing Consulting out of the warm 8-degree Cincinnati with the Cincinnati Bengals going to the the championships, right?
That's another phone call. Another.
Is that a hockey team or
listen,
play softball?
Got to beat the Chiefs. Got to beat the Chiefs, and then I got a feeling
that's the baseball team right there.
We got the Niners next. And
that's
going to be replayed. Well, yeah, right. That's going to be replayed. The two only Super Bowls we've ever been in was against the Niners, and we lost both of those. I hope we get to play that again. Anyway, guys, well, listen. You know, today's show is about firing the phone company, saving money, and increasing efficiency. It's all about COVID, right? I mean, you know, let's face it, we got to do more with less. There's less people to hire right now. There are less things to buy because of, you know, the supply chain out there, less options and so on and so forth. And let's face it, you know, some businesses are doing great. Some businesses aren't doing so great. So we need to try to help the ones that are needing help and aren't doing so great. So voice over IP phone systems are definitely part of the equation in my mind. What say you, Groot?
I say absolutely. Voice over IP is certainly, you know, even if you're using traditional voice service through a traditional telephone company, you're still going to look at a voice over IP system for your office.
Yeah.
I think the key that you mentioned for a sec, Jim.
How about if I get the thing off your face?
Yeah, that would be nice. But the one key thing you mentioned is with COVID, a lot of people started going remote, right? And remote is becoming kind of like the new norm. Majority of our customers, at least a portion of their workforce, is working from home, even another state now. So flexibility, I think, is key. Being able to function wherever you are, and I mean that's something where VoIP really hits home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I think it's safe to say that more and more things in life, in the world, are becoming tech integrated and therefore what we would consider endpoints on a network, right? So when you have a voice over IP system, and I'm not trying to get technical, but when we can put it on a network and we can integrate it into our technology, now you have way more than just a phone call going on, right? And so that's where the power of the cloud can come into play, or you know, where I don't have to have it physically sitting in my office space, or it doesn't even really have to have a physical phone attached.
Well, let's get right into that. I mean, that, you know, the first thing I wanted to ask for people is, you know, let's talk about what a VoIP a voice over IP phone system. VoIP stands for voice over IP, and what the differences are between it and an old fashioned phone system.
Well, first off, it's digital.
Hmm.
So it's a much better sound quality, provided your internet connection is decent.
But you know what? I'm going to play devil. And as we go through the show, I'm going to play devil's advocate, right? And so I don't care about sound quality as long as I can hear who I'm talking to, right?
Yeah,
Make that
actually,
big of a difference?
the funny thing is a lot of VoIP systems that we installed years back, the as they first onboarded, they started hearing the difference in quality. They were like, I don't like the sound. It sounds weird. It sounds like I'm in a box or something like that.
Mhm.
Because when VoIP was new, you lost all of the side tone, all of the noise that was on the line that you're used to hearing just as a standard phone caller. So sometimes you would think somebody dropped off the phone call because you don't hear anything because there's some actual silence on the line now.
Right.
So that's one thing that we actually had to combat in terms of some complaints during the initial, I'll call it evolution with VoIP. And now there's technologies where you can enable even that, like kind of like a fake tone generation. So it
I had no
sounds like,
idea. I never knew that was possible. Is
yeah,
that
So
really?
a lot of times you
Yeah.
don't even hear a busy tone when you call somebody on a VoIP system. If it's not configured to play that tone,
Right.
it just
right.
says, "Oh, the call's busy," and hangs up. It doesn't report
Same
it
thing with a
back.
dial tone. Dial tone is like, oh yeah, my phone's not. Well, no, that tone is nothing. Like
That's
it's
right.
Yeah. Well, the phone company made that stuff up so we could have cues to know what to do at what times with their phone
Well,
system. So those things are gone. So it's digital, right? And it has a better high quality sound. And I'm with you, Brandon, for the number of systems we put in. That it takes that high def takes a little bit of getting used to
yeah.
at first, right?
mhm.
But it's a cleaner signal. You can hear it better. You have less tinniness or less, it's just it sounds like you're talking to the person versus talking through a wire.
Now, to be honest, though, I mean, different hardware, performs differently too. If
Sure.
they're using cheap hardware and not HD audio or something like that, they may say that VoIP is terrible or I hate it, and it really is. So you got to make sure that piece of it is also being addressed as well.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I mean, to be completely clear, like network quality, provider, not all providers are created equal.
yeah.
Right. So when you're doing the free, Google Voice or Twilio, or those are not necessarily commercial products, therefore not set up and supported in that same way. Don't go, like, you can get business quality voice for very inexpensive rates. So don't
You get
go
what you pay
super
for.
cheap. It's
You
not
get what you pay
Magic
for.
Jack, though. That's
Yeah.
not what we want, right? The
Yeah.
$20 a year Magic Jack kind of thing. That
So
doesn't
what?
work.
So it's digital. Why do they call it voice over IP?
I mean, just
It-
from a very basic standpoint, it's a device on your network, just like your computer or anything else, versus the older analog lines. There was no IP address. You couldn't connect to it from a computer remotely, anything else like that, and extend it across the internet like any other device you can. I'd say
Mhm.
that's kind of like key differentiator.
Do I need a second network cable running to my office?
You could.
No,
Like
it depends on how
It
your
all
network is
depends.
configured.
That's getting into that
I mean, look, traditionally, in most cases, no, right?
right.
I mean, you can use apps on your mobile phone, right? Like, that's my
Yeah.
PBX, right, in my office. So if
Yeah.
the phone rings in my office, it rings on my mobile phone.
And that's an
I
app.
can be anywhere, and I'm talking as though I'm sitting at my desk in my office.
Right.
Um,
Right.
But you are sitting at your desk at your office.
I am today. That's true. You are correct.
Okay.
So, all right. So, how does a voice over IP system make it so I can fire the phone company, guys? I mean, that's really the big question here. I mean, spending money month over month over month with the phone company, right? And
Yeah,
I want to, I mean,
They're all phone companies, though, at the end of the day, right? You're firing one phone company and going to another.
they are.
I would
Truthfully,
also I I would also go as far as to say that you need to be on some level understanding that there are top level providers and then sub level providers. So even Microsoft, who sells voice over IP services in their Teams and their Exchange product, they're using bandwidth.com as their provider for voice, right? Which is just a top end voice provider. So the point I'm trying to make is just because you go to Microsoft doesn't, if you don't like bandwidth or whomever, right? I'm not picking on bandwidth. I'm just saying any company, you got to be careful because you may be still using that same service or that same business, right?
We had an interesting thing happen a couple months ago where one of our customers was using a low-end provider, and they ended up getting hacked, and it took out their phones. It didn't attack their system, so they moved to a better provider, and they've been very happy. So security is a thing too. So that extra price is definitely worth it. And our vendor is very responsive.
I still think it's a little bit of a trick question because you're trading really one vendor for another. The key difference is that most VoIP carriers is, I guess, what I would call it here. You don't necessarily need that old analog line coming into your office. It's going to end up riding on whatever internet connection you have or whatever your cell is connected to at the time or whatever internet service you have at home, which just drives the importance of there's technology things you should have IT or your IT team thinking about to ensure quality is happening across those type of circuits. Because in the past, you might have AT&T come in and they'll bring in lines. Whatever happens on your network doesn't really matter, right? It can happen and it wouldn't impact your phones. Now it adds a little bit of complexity there, but you get a lot more functionality.
I often tell people it this way, and when I talk about firing a phone company, that's a sales technique, right? Everybody should know that anybody who says that is just trying to sell you something, right? With that line, get you excited about something, right? But your voice over IP has a phone company behind it, right? And call out. I use Citricom. I represent Citricom most of the time. You guys?
Yeah, I'm Citricom.
Citricom.
You guys are
Anybody else?
3CX, right?
Who is that again?
We can sell Citricom, but that's not what we sell most of the time.
Okay, yeah, and there's all kinds of them out there. They're just these are the ones that we all use, and so it's a phone company, right? But what I tell people is this: when I say fire the phone company, what I mean is that line that they use that brings in your telephone service, right, and your internet company are probably two different things right now, most likely. And when you get rid of one, you eliminate those costs and your phones go to running on the internet connection only. Does that mean you don't have to beef up your internet connection? Maybe, right? Does that mean you got to get a better internet connection? Sure, but there is a cost analysis that can be done to see if it makes sense for you to fire the phone company and go with a voice over IP system. That's what I generally say.
I can tell you that probably 9 times out of 10, and I'll be happy to go get back. I can show on paper to our clients who we have rolled out PBXs inside of 6 months, they recover their investment in the new system. Inside of a year, they're gaining. They're in positive cash flow by changing from traditional to voice over IP. Go ahead.
In most cases, I think it's within 12 months. I mean, I don't think I've seen any deployment we've done where they weren't recouping all of the costs from savings within a year.
Yep. So let's talk about how it saves money, right? Do I got to go buy a new phone system?
Depends.
It
Well,
depends.
it depends on what phone system you have, but likely yes. The answer to that is probably yes. But
you may need to buy phones, but sometimes the service vendors provide that as part of the service. You don't need to buy anything. So it really depends. I didn't answer your last question in terms of like who you sell, because it all depends on the customer, what they're looking for, what their needs are, and then we figure out what is the best solution for that specific customer. So like Citricom, do we sell? Yeah. Do we sell Star to Start? Yes. Do we sell 3CX? Yes. Just then depends on the situation on what is the best fit.
You got it.
Yeah.
So
you got it.
Basically by going into a voice over IP and again, computerized phone system is in essence what we're talking about, right? It's software driven. You have a lot of features, but with these newer voice providers away from the standard telcos, now we have the ability to use, for instance, SMS texting on our primary phone numbers for our office, right? So in my customers, or in our case here, our customers can send a SMS text off of their mobile phone. It comes straight into the support queue. My support guys get that just the same as they would an email or a phone call. All of those things are coming into the phone system. You can tie it into things like Facebook Messenger or chat, because again, it's a software hook. And so you're just bringing it in. Just the options are endless now, right? I can have fax coming to me. I can have, all that kind of stuff.
And I think it's fair to ask, do you even really need a physical desk phone anymore?
My guys don't have phones on their desk. My staff,
we don't either.
One of them. There is not a phone on the desk.
When COVID hit, we went all soft phone. We haven't gone back.
That's right.
Yeah, and again, just so everybody understands, define soft phone for everyone so they get this concept.
It's just a software phone. So it's an app on your cell phone. It's an application on your Windows or Mac
computer.
desktop. Yeah.
Laptop or a headset. Yeah, it's software.
It's got a dial pad just like you would have on your standard phone. A lot of them include chat functionality, or like David was mentioning. I mean, that is huge. 10 years ago, these solutions didn't have like integrated texting capability. And now, I mean, it's hard to find one that doesn't provide that anymore. And as a business, to be able to have like a text come in and a group of people be able to see that, answer, have accountability around it is amazing.
So you want to tell us what you're showing us here, David?
I'm just showing you the application on my desktop that is tied into my phone system, and it just allows us to, we don't have a physical phone.
Yeah. And so and I'm going to pop that off there. So if I'm a business and I traditionally have a receptionist that answers the phones, can that functionality still be performed on a soft phone? And then wherever I'm at working from home, and wherever they're at working from home, I can transfer calls between people or into their voicemail and such?
Your receptionist can still have the physical phone with the big box of buttons that she's pushing to see who's on a call and all that if she wants it, or she can pitch that into the trash can and use a piece of software on her desktop. And it doesn't matter. You can have a phone or not have a phone. You can have a phone at home and maybe not in the office, or
if you transition to the software piece, you can actually drag and drop to transfer calls. You don't have to look at the buttons or do anything. It's really pretty cool. One of the other things is you can actually have a chat on your website that'll turn into a phone call right from the website with the system that we sell.
Which is that system? Because I didn't know that.
3CX.
Really? That's
I
cool.
just showed you.
So
well,
yeah,
that's actually one of the things that I was going to ask next is how can a VoIP make me more money? Ba-boom, right there.
I just want to say one comment on the soft phone, just to put it out there, though, is that if you're a person that likes speakerphone, or you're in a group setting where you have other people in there, the soft phone isn't probably for you. I mean, that's why you still have the option to do both or either or one or the other. But I'm a physical phone guy, that's. But when I leave, I have the app, so I'm kind of utilizing both. But it's just if you need that, and you can get who's that, the Polycoms for VoIP systems too. So they're all you don't have to. You may have to swap out the devices to get a VoIP compatible one, but that technology is still there though.
Yeah, actually the conference desk phones too, right? Those big, that have multi-microphones and stuff like that.
Yep. The other good thing is if your business is growing and you add a bunch more phones, you don't have to buy more hardware all of a sudden to be able to add more phones in. You just plug them in and they start working.
Yeah, that's a big benefit right there.
Potentially a software update, which takes nothing. You don't have to call a vendor out or anything. You just do the update.
Here's the other side of it. With the voice over IP system, we can now encrypt the voice traffic, right? So what does that mean? That means that nobody can be listening to your phone calls or intercepting that traffic. In the traditional sense, it's literally 2 alligator clips on the right post and you're in. So,
But we will miss unplugging and plugging in to transfer calls too, like the good old days.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's why
So
we
then what you're
have a
saying,
dial tone and a busy signal, because they needed to know when to pull the wires. That's
now
where
guys,
they started.
I'm intentionally playing dumb, okay, which isn't
Yeah,
too
I know.
hard.
I got you.
It's not too hard for me, right?
I
You
have
know,
much more respect for you, Jim.
it comes very natural. But so I'm a salesperson, right? And I'm on the road all the time. I'm also in the office putting together quotes and stuff like that. You know, I have sales meetings in the office. I have sales meetings with the customers, and I have, you know, I play golf with my customers, right?
Mhm.
How does a voice over IP system help so that I'm not missing my calls?
It's what you just said, though.
Yeah.
Wherever you're at, you're on the golf course, your work phone is sitting there in your pocket. It's your cell phone. It doesn't matter where you're at. And this goes back to another added benefit. A lot of times in the past, people did not want to give out their cell phone, right? Like you hire a
Right.
salesperson, and if they're giving out their cell phone and they leave, what happens? All of
That's
that
what I was going to say.
communication goes with them as well.
I
And
was
so
going to
you're
ask
able to,
on that.
yeah, you're able to isolate all of that company related information and data into a single place on
And
their
you don't have
phone.
to carry two phones around now.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, let me just list off, if I may, a few of the features that kind of, the sales bullet points, right?
He knows these by heart, by the way.
I mean, you're talking like, first off, just inbound fax to PDF. That is super simple. People like that. I can have auto attendant if I need one, right? So people call in, press 1 for this, 2 for this, 3 for the hours. I can have queues, which, press 1 for the support team, and then you go into a queue and it says you are number 3 in line, and so forth. I can have in those queues where people can press 2 and save their spot in line. It kicks them out, and then we call them back. The phone system automatically calls that number back when their turn comes. It automatically happens. We have chat off of our website. We have chat off of icons that we put on people's desktops so they can go straight into support. We do SMS text messaging. Find me, follow me. If you want to use your mobile phone, you can have it start on your desk phone. If it doesn't get you there, then it'll ring your mobile phone. If you want it there, if not, it'll go back to the soft extension. You can forward it to somebody internally. You can have somebody else grab your calls in the midst of a call. You can listen. I use it as a training tool. My new guys, they're helping customers, and we're back there whispering to them. The customer can't hear, but they can. We can talk them through how to do things, and they're learning how to do their job. That is huge for any business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can go on for another half an hour if you like me to.
Voicemails come to your email, so you don't have to check a mailbox, right?
Or not. They can stay. They don't have to come in an email.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah, and all
record
these
calls.
things
You
can use
guys
as much
glazed
as-
over something.
Good.
And that is, in the past when you had a standard telephone system. I mean, I'm in Florida, right? Hurricanes coming in, or it rains every damn day, electricity goes out, and what happens to the old telephone systems?
It's all
Now
done.
you get a busy signal when you call the business. Like, number one, how professional does that look? Now you're missing calls or voicemails, can't get those sales calls coming in. I mean, that doesn't happen with a VoIP system. Comes in no matter if your physical phones are offline or not, and then you can route. Go ahead, Jim.
What if my internet connection's down?
Doesn't
Andy?
matter if your phone system's in the cloud.
Right.
People can still
See,
call and
that's
leave
the
a
number
voicemail.
one-
And if you got the mobile app, you can still use it.
That's the number
Even
one
if you have an
objection I get.
on-premise system, because you're using like ISDN or whatever, a T1, you can still have your provider a lot of times forward the calls to something else too if that's down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
See, that's the number one objection I get almost always. What if our internet connection goes down? Don't worry, you got at least a desktop app, you got a mobile phone app, and you can grab your calls from Starbucks if you want to.
I had a client
digital.
literally this morning who has a call center. Their entire business is based around a call center. They had no desktop phones for the first 45 minutes this morning because of a problem that was on the network. And they didn't miss one call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so like
That's
I
huge.
don't know.
That's
That's huge.
All right, so let's listen to this on a couple of quick things here, guys. We got people that are going to listen to this and watch this, and they're going to say, "This is interesting. I really never considered this." What are some of those? What would you say the number one or number two consideration should be for somebody that's looking for a voice over IP solution? One, chat in any one of these platforms that we have to us, and we'll help guide you. That's one recommendation I would make. But what other considerations? What should they be looking out for?
Well, so
Cost?
generally, yeah, I would say there's two models when it comes to voice over IP system in the industry. It's per seat or per call. Okay. And that's the one thing I guess you need to look at for your business, because, for instance, I want to say Citricom is a per seat model. Now, like Brandon mentioned, I think if you pay their per seat price, they include the phone, so there's no investment there. But I think if you statistically map that out over the course of 3 years, it's probably a little bit more expensive for that particular seat than it would be if you went the traditional way of putting desk phones and putting a SIP trunk and putting a software application in. But that doesn't make it bad. It depends on the business need, right? And like, if it's like, there's nothing better for a Citricom model to just send a phone to a guy, say plug it in, turn it on, you're up and running, off you go, nothing to talk about.
No.
That's huge. There's
Right.
benefits to both sides, but those are what you need to consider, because that's going to affect your price, and it's going to affect your ability to scale out and in and flex.
Yeah.
To me, I think the key is just taking the time to actually evaluate your needs before you just. Most do have SMS, most do have all these different functions. Some don't, or some may do one thing better than another, and you just want to, like, don't just Comcast calling you, pressuring you, hey, we got this deal going on, sign, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with something. Understand that some of them have month-to-month agreements, some of them push 3-year contracts, some of them have functions that you may really
Never
want,
use.
some of them,
Never
yeah,
use, yeah.
you'll never use, and just make sure you're evaluating it like anything else, I feel like.
I find a big point that we always have to battle is the lack of co-terming of agreements. Okay.
Oh yeah.
It's a real problem. So let's suppose you go with your phone company that wants to bring in a VoIP system in for you, and you sign a contract for that. That's a contract for the phone system. But then you have a contract for the phone lines and a contract for the internet connectivity. If you want to cancel any one of those at any one time, you potentially have no opportunity because none of them term out at the same time. It's
Yeah.
a real nightmare. It's a real nightmare. So I would recommend looking at contracts.
I've even seen a VoIP vendor where they were not co-terming the add-on lines after.
Mhm.
So they started with like 30 phones, and each phone they added after was a completely different term. Imagine trying to terminate that contract.
So
What a
what do you do
nightmare
when
that
you want to
is.
switch? You say, "Oh, I want to switch off 30 of the initial lines, but I got 2 years left on these other 2 lines, so I got to keep them."
It was a nightmare. I mean, you know
Yeah,
why they're doing it, but it was just sick. Yeah.
it's a real bad practice if you
Our
ask me.
vendors month to month.
Yeah, Citricom is a month-to-month
Yeah.
provider, runs over the internet, phones are included. You know, I'm going to pitch it because obviously that's what I recommend.
I usually find month to month provides better service, because if they don't, people will leave them.
Yeah.
It's not like you're tied in because of your contract.
Yeah. Is voice over IP service available everywhere, guys?
No, it's not available in some of the rural places of New Mexico because there's no internet.
What about taking that telephone number that you've had your whole business career? Can that be transferred into every situation?
Yeah, it's just like a regular.
Not every
Like
situation.
99%.
Yeah, it's not 100%.
The only ones you can't transfer are the ones where the vendor you bought it from has some crazy nonsense going on to keep you tied into them.
Yeah.
Well, that's usually the more rural or smaller carriers who were able to negotiate some terms early on.
That's not a voice over IP issue.
Right.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. But you could set up a forward for that number to your new voice over IP solution. There's lots of different things. I think the number one thing for me is talk to your salesperson. Trust the salesperson. We've got
What?
Us. Trust us. Trust us. Right.
Oh,
Trust
that's
us.
different. That's different. Okay.
No, you know what? I think all of us have at least a voice over IP buyer's guide question list. So if you want it, you can chat with any one of us.
And calculators. I can calculate the return on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Heck yeah. It's not a hard thing to do.
Mhm.
Guys, we went over. This is a great topic because, we just flew through it. And it didn't seem like 30 minutes. Not at all. All right. Well, guys, when is the reboot on again?
Next week,
Next Wednesday.
At
1:30
1:30
1:30.
Eastern time.
Eastern time.
Catch us on LinkedIn. You can grab our YouTube channel or any one of our podcasts. This episode will be up later on today, and probably available on like most of the applications. Usually hit it in 24 hours by the next day, but you'll see it maybe on like I don't know, Pandora or something like that pretty soon. So, guys, thanks a lot. Great show.
Thanks,
All
Jim.
right, guys. Y'all
Okay.
have fun.
All right,
great
thanks
day,
for
guys.
joining us, everyone.
See you later.
See you.
Bye.